non-judgment as a way of living or a way of being, not just in counselling. Interesting take on this evergreen topic, Rory.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? And I remember from my early training, I had a copy, like a novel you buy and you go on holiday. It was that size, called Person-Centered Counselling in Action. It's now quite a big book, but this one was like a novel. And I remember earnestly going through it as a student and soaking in all the information. One of the things that was in that particular edition was the person who was writing said that the therapist may very well take on or start to adopt a non-judgmental attitude, not only in their counselling rooms, but also in their way of life. It's expected when you're working in practice that you have a non-judgmental attitude. But what can happen is that can flow into your life. And I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. If myself and Mrs. Counselling Tutor are having a conversation about somebody, I'll always look at it through a therapy lens more than often. There are times when, I have judgment like anybody else. And it infuriates her because she said, you always look through that lens. And I say to her, it's just how I am now. It's just the way I am. If somebody's getting upset or having an argument or just having a bad day and I come across them, my first instinct is to say, what happened to them? What's going on for that person? My therapy brain kicks in first. And then, of course, I have to make an assessment. And this is the difference between judgment and assessment, where an assessment is my proximity to this person going to cause me damage? And what am I going to do about it? Do I need to think about putting my safety first and then maybe thinking about getting some help for that person, or just exiting the situation? And I think it's one of those ways of being that slowly permeates into a therapist as they mature in therapy.
We're speaking about being non-judgmental, but it is always within reason, isn't it? Because we are human. And this is a way of being. It's how you are. We study the theory and we go through the learning of this. Let's just start with that theoretical roots here. So non-judgment is referring to observing thoughts, emotions, behaviors, our own or others, without evaluating them as good or bad. We're not forming a judgment on it. We're just letting it be as it is. And if we look to the theoretical roots, you won't be surprised that in counselling it aligns with Carl Rogers' concept of unconditional positive regard. And I guess if you think about UPR plus empathy and congruence, these are what are seen as being the catalyst for change within therapy, certainly in the person-centered model. But it needs to be embodied in self. When we look at the 7 stages of process by Carl Rogers, he speaks about the development that a person might undergo through their life or through therapy, and what the kind of theory shows. We need to personally develop within ourselves to adapt a more non-judgmental attitude. So the work lies in self-work, and that's tough. It's not just to others. It's also and maybe firstly, to self. Do we judge ourselves? Do we have the criticizing voice? So it does matter beyond the therapy room because it's us, it's our development and how we are. And it has psychological benefits. It reduces stress and anxiety. If you're able to just let things go, let things play out as they really are, it can reduce stress and anxiety because you don't feel that you have an investment into controlling an outcome and how they should be and how it should be and why it should be that way. You're just watching it play out in the same way as you might watch a film. We don't have control over other people. And keeping in mind that when we're judging it based on our frame of reference. In other words, the road we've walked, the experiences we've had, our culture, our race, our identity are all mixed in to how we view whether something is good or bad. We're all human, and I think there needs to be allowance in that. What's your thoughts, Rory?
Yeah, I just try to be a bit more philosophical about things. And I found through my life that being a bit more philosophical is quite helpful. And actually, it aids communication. I had another communication with someone where I thought I wasn't being heard. And instead of saying, you're not listening to me, I just said to them, and this wasn't in therapy, this was just a conversation I was having with someone. I said, I don't know how difficult it is to do what you do. And the person stopped and looked at me, and the conversation and the relationship changed because I took the time to think about their frame of reference. I wasn't getting what I was needing from this person, but then I realized that there was a whole mechanism behind that. And it wasn't just that person. I just try and take the time and to live a bit more philosophically. But I will leave you with the point, and I think this is an important point, especially for trainees, the difference between judgment and assessment. Judgment is where you're judging people on who they are and their difference. That's judgment. Assessment is where you're making an assessment on things that may be life-altering for your life or for theirs.
Yeah, I like that. So when we're speaking about the judgment, we need to look at where the judgment comes from. And it comes from inside us. It comes from who we are, our experiences, our frame of reference, and it is directed towards another. If we're talking about an assessment, it is mapped to something. It's mapped to research or a framework or an understanding. And I think what we can maybe end this on is some tips that you can use. And one of them is mindfulness and awareness. Notice judgments as they arise. I find myself holding judgments within a day. If they go by and I don't see them and I don't catch them, I've missed an opportunity. If I'm so caught in the narrative, then I'm missing an opportunity for personal development. When it's within an interaction with another person, or even in therapy, we can have curiosity instead of criticism. So instead of, that's a bad choice, we might ask, what led the person to do that? A language shift is really useful, where we use an I statement. As soon as we take the I statement, we make it from our frame of reference, where we're able to, with the work and the personal development, keep that judgment in check where it belongs. And we all have an ego, and it's going to show itself because we are human. And then self-compassion breaks. If you catch yourself judging your own mistakes, your slip-ups, or the emotion, I shouldn't be feeling like this, pause and say, it's no big deal. I'm just human. It's okay. And be kind and empathic to self. It's coupled up with empathy, because empathy is not looking at how I think it looks. It's trying to see it from the other person's perspective. And as you have said so many times, Rory, all behavior is goal directed, and humans and people act in certain ways because that's how their life has risen up for them. And for us to judge that without living that life is unfair, in the same way as we wouldn't want to be judged by others if they don't understand. And I think maybe as an exercise going out of this, if you wanted to journal or put something down, think about a time where you feel that you were judged unfairly. What was the feeling for you? Did that person really understand what it was like for you? And if you follow that thread, you're probably going to find that they just don't really understand what it was like and why I did or acted in the way I did. And it all lies in that understanding. Yeah, and recognizing we're human. Great topic, Rory. Any final thoughts as we close it?
Yes, my final plea really is as a therapist, you have to feel and think, and you have to critically think. And it's my belief that to be a complete therapist, the dividing line between acting on emotion and acting on critical thinking. And I think either of those should be equally as nourished in both therapy and your own personal development. I think one without the other doesn't give you a whole person. I think you need empathy. You need to be able to see the other person's frame of reference, but also you need to exercise critical thinking. And I think if you have both of those in harmony, you're going to have a happier life.